Brought to you by Penguin.
The Merde Factor by Stephen Clarke. Read by Tom Allen. The English have corrupted the mind of my kingdom. We must not expose a new generation to the risk of being perverted by their language. Louis XV, King of France, 1715 to 1774. Die Erde hat mich wieder. The earth has reclaimed me, from Faust, by J.W. Goethe. Die Merde hat mich wieder. The Merde has reclaimed me, from what? By Samuel Beckett. 1. Le printemps à Paris, il me donne suffisamment d'énergie pour conquérir le monde, ou au moins l'Angleterre. Springtime in Paris, it gives me enough energy to conquer the world, or at the very least, England. Paul Ovid Robin Desclous, general in Napoleon's army and alleged lover of Josephine, killed at Waterloo by a stray French cannonball. 1. The sun came out, and springtime hit Paris like a tsunami of hormones. Suddenly, every life form in the city, from the preening pigeons to the usually sullen street cops, seemed to grow a grin on its face. The morning pavements were as crowded as ever, but now the Parisians looked as though they were enjoying their walk to the metro station, instead of doing their usual head-down rush. The rental bikes at the Vélib stations disappeared early as occasional cyclists opted to take the scenic route to work. Almost overnight, girls decided that the season for tights was over, and the men in the streets mutated into owls, their necks suddenly capable of 360-degree rotation in search of bare legs. The first tourists were just appearing, tiptoeing in like guests who arrive early at a party and feel embarrassed until they notice that the plates on the buffet are all deliciously full, and their timing was perfect. The cafe awnings had been winched away to expose the terraces to the sun, transforming the city into one big open-air theatre. The tall plane trees that line the streets, their spindly new branches waving like overexcited children, were sending out a blizzard of pollen that swarmed through the air, the particles as big as insects and as spiky as a Parisian waiter's morning conversation. There were even tufts of plant life poking up through the round metal grills at the bases of the tree trunks. These absurdly optimistic little sprigs would soon be pecked out by birds or peed on by dogs, but for the moment they were raising their heads through the drift of pollen and cigarette ends and enjoying springtime in Paris. Why couldn't I do the same? Well, the immediate reason was that I was sitting in a cafe in the posh 6th arrondissement, suffering from palpitations. I'd come indoors to avoid paying extra for a drink on the terrace, but it hadn't done me much good. The waiter had just deposited a coffee on my table, accompanied by a toothpick-sized complimentary chocolate, and a bill that suggested I was being asked to help refund the Eurozone debt. Surely he'd mix me up with the table across the aisle, where a family of tourists were grazing on a mound of croissants. "Excusez-moi," I called out, but the waiter was on his way to inflict some pain at another table. I heard an American woman ask for a cappuccino. No, I thought, don't do it. "Un cappuccino? Ce n'est pas San Francisco ici, madame," the waiter guffawed. But the woman wasn't backing down. She looked around the place, taking in the leather banquettes, the flitting waiters in their long aprons, the clink of spoon on china cup. "C'est un café ici, non?" she inquired in an extreme American accent. "Of course," the waiter mispronounced. "You want un café crème?" "Non, un cappuccino." It would have been fun to watch them battle it out, the waiter trying to tame the intruder, the woman naively expecting to get exactly what she wanted in a French café. But just at that moment, in walked my reason for being here, a loping figure who stood out in the chic environment like a cigarette butt on a dish of oysters. Even the waiter flinched. My American friend Jake looked, as usual, as if he was auditioning for the role of a corpse washed up on a beach. His clothes had apparently been gnawed at by a shoal of sardines, and his long blonde hair styled by the rising tide. Only the huge grin on his erratically shaven face showed any sign of symmetry. "Hey, Paul, beau weather, huh? Merci for having come, man," he said in his unique brand of franglaise. He was one of those people who learn a new language by injecting bits of the old one from their memory. In the 10 or so years he'd been living in Paris, he'd managed to stew his friend.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?